sports events.
The Winston Championship. Drivers are not racing for the prestige of winning a national event title. Right now, it's all about money. $25,000 to the winners of Top Fuel and Funny Car, and $16,000 to the Pro Stock champ. The challenge here is many-faceted. Master the tricky track here at the Rock. No mean feat in itself. Next, step up and meet the challenge of the best, namely the other invited guests. And last, master personal demons that sap nerve, concentration, and stamina. Beat those long odds, pocket the cash, and watch as the banker and tax man become your best pals tomorrow after Rockingham. Welcome, everyone, to Rockingham Dragway in the Sand Hills region of North Carolina, an American sports cavalcade coverage of the NHRA Winston Invitational, presented by Castrol GTX. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the track they call the Rock. I'm Steve Evans, and you're looking at the McDonald's Top Fuel car driven by Ed the Ace McCullough. Now, over 23 runs this year in national event competition, this car has averaged a staggering 4.88 second elapsed time at a huge speed, 295 miles per hour. But the Rock, which doesn't see a lot of action during the year, wasn't quite ready to accept that performance, and the Ace failed to qualify, but in very good company. So did Kenny Bernstein, Eddie Hill, and Doug Herbert. But to be fair, this was a very tight 8-car field, not the usual 16-car field you find at a national event. So why am I here? Well, McCullough is going to race today as the first alternate, replacing Corey McClanathan. What happened to Corey McClanathan is simply terrifying. As this qualifying pass took place yesterday, Corey Mack was seated well into the field and was looking to take the full measure of this uncertain Rockingham surface. At the finish line, the car simply broke in half and sent Corey McClanathan on a ride that will reverberate throughout the rest of his drag racing career. As the car scraped to a halt in its roll cage, an immense fireball engulfed the rear of the car, burning McClanathan on his hands and forehead. What happened is easily explainable by the laws of physics. For more downforce, the team had set the rear wing for maximum attack. As the front wheels planted the nose, the rear wing torqued the chassis literally to the breaking point. With all directional stability gone, there was no controlling the car, and it became inevitable that Corey would hit the guardrail and, as a result, flip the car and ride back first through this inferno. The young driver was immediately airlifted to the University of North Carolina Burn Center at Chapel Hill, where a full medical evaluation was performed. Well, a little better news. Corey Mack is expected to be released from the hospital tomorrow. He has some second-degree burns on his hands and a little bit on his head, but is not expected to have to undergo any kind of skin grafting. The crew is headed for his hometown near Los Angeles to prepare his backup car. It'll be ready whenever Corey is. Okay, right now, for the funny car side of things here at the Rock, here is Brock Yates.
Steve, you're looking at crew chief Tommy Anderson reassembling Al Hoffman's car to get ready for first-round competition here. And for Al, the Rock has a special significance. You'll remember a couple of years ago, he came down here, won the event, and really made a major burst on the big-time funny car competition. Al, the Rock is a tough place to race, but you seem, now that you're a low qualifier, you seem to be able to handle this surface better than a lot of guys.
Well, what's come in good for us, I've had a lot of experience on match racing and tracks that weren't really in that good a condition. And same with Tom Anderson. I mean, he's real good in the clutch department. If I do my job out there and drive it, so far we've had good success here.
So basically it's that old match race experience, like guys like you and Force are used to driving on all kinds of surfaces, and of course Tommy's done the same thing. So I'm sure clutch setup on a slick track like this is absolutely critical. You cannot overpower this track.
Oh yeah, I mean, we've got enough horsepower, as you know. We ran 508 and 509, you know, the car is capable of running 5.0s, but you just can't use it here and put it to the racing surface.
Go get him, good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, Al Hoffman. And now for more on the pro stock scene, let's go to my pal, Bob Fry.
Thanks, Brock. To show you how fickle the sport of drag racing can be, I give you Bob Glidden. Coming after his Gator Nationals performance where he failed to make that record-setting field, Bob Glidden has come in here to Rockingham and just might be the class of the field. Now, in the opening round, he recorded a 7:12 ET and was the only driver to improve over their qualifying pace. Plus, Bob ran a 194.5 mile-per-hour speed, which for the Ford is just about the best the car has ever run. And to finally show you that things might be going the way of the Ford, he's got the bye run as they head into round number 2. The reason for that is because of what happened to Larry Morgan during his first-round match with Vince Curie. Now, the super clean Oldsmobile appeared to be on his way to an easy win as he carted a 719 over 190 miles per hour. But when he tried to stop the race car, he started bouncing it, got airborne, and actually ran into the wall at the end of the Rockingham track. The car spun around and suffered severe frontal damage. Larry got out and was okay, but the car was damaged beyond repair and will not be able to show for round 2.
I don't think I hurt the car real bad. I just bought a new front end. That maybe I shouldn't do that anymore. So I'm gonna send it up to get it fixed. I'll be okay. Thank you.
So things may finally be going right for Bob Glidden after that tough performance down in Florida. Oh, by the way, did anybody mention Warren Johnson? Steve?
No, but I'm sure we will before this day is out. Let's also explain that Pro Stock was a 16-car qualified field, unlike Top Fuel and Funny Car, which are 8, and this is round 1 of Top Fuel. And there is Scott Coletta in that left-hander 4-lane out of Ypsilanti, Michigan. And Brock Yates, he'll be up against a man from the great Northwest, Pat Austin.
Well, Pat has had his share of problems this year, no question about it, Steve. Remember, he had that big crew mutiny out in Pomona at the Winter Nationals. Now he's got Frank Bradley on board as the crew chief, and this automobile, no question about it, is capable of some big, big numbers. But Austin, as you said, was lucky in a way to get into this 8-car field. Very exclusive bunch of people here. So, and a bunch of people that are very good are not in this field.
Oh, boy, we talked about that earlier. But these two guys qualified very well. Austin, number 5 at a 497. Coletta, number 4 at a 496. If you add the 1,000 stitches, they come in here an absolute toss-up as far as qualifying performances. Pat Austin, who has won more alcohol funny car titles than any other driver, in fact, the second winningest driver in NHRA history. Scott Coletta, well, he has a funny car victory to his credit and a number 1 qualifying spot in funny car, but in Top Fuel, nothing just yet.
Well, let's not forget that Scott has Dick LaHaye, former Winston champion himself, wrenching that car. He and his pop, Connie, are old pals from the Detroit area, and Dick LaHaye has made a big difference with this car.
You bet. It's a battle of crew chiefs, Frank Bradley and Dick LaHaye. Late off the starting line was Austin Plus. He smoked the tires. Scott Coletta goes to the semifinals. His dad, Connie, likes that. A 5:05 elapsed time at 287 miles an hour. Right now, let's go back to the starting line. Bob Fry is with the winning crew chief.
Dick, an 05 certainly isn't the number you were looking for. Might have gotten a break there with Austin blowing the tires off.
Well, they put a cylinder out when it left the start line, and rightfully we figured the track was going to be a little edgy for this first round, and we'd be in the first pair. I had it backed up a little bit, so we'll just have to see what happens next round.
Here is Jim Head. We've said before, the innovator, always. He's a graduate engineer out of Ohio, and if you look at his car, you'll see it's narrower. The rear end is totally different. The front end is totally different. He builds it in his own shop in the capital city of the Buckeye State. Mike Dunn, a native Californian, now enjoying the pleasantries of Mount Joy, Pennsylvania. Dunn is qualified number 6 at a 497. Jim Head, number 3, which is a real good effort for him lately, at 494. And anytime you can say 4s on this racetrack, you've done pretty well.
And Jim Head always experimenting. The only difference in his car, as you can see, he's got the classic big front wheels on that car. The only guy in Top Fuel right now not running the little front wheels.
Jim Head all over the racetrack, surfing his way down the far lane. Darrell Gwensy's the win light in his man's lane and likes that an awful lot. Won't be real crazy about the times on the scoreboard of 5:13 at 281 miles an hour, but the important thing is to get it to the following round. Now let's watch, particularly on the far side, that is Jim Head.
Dunn gets a good launch, better reaction time. Head trying to catch up here and just lays too much throttle on and up in smoke. Got the car sideways a little bit, recovered, but no chance at this particular point as Jim Head goes down. And look at Mike Dunn. He's a little sideways, too. He gets a lot of tire smoke, but gets out of it, pedals his way to a 5:13. Not a particularly good time, but he's in the next round.
Well, Mike, you were headed for a quarter-mile burnout until you got a handle on this thing. Nice driving.
Well, yeah, I got real loose out there in the middle, and motor came up there and finally caught it. You know, the track's just a little bit loose out there today, and we've got to make some adjustments. We left the motor a little bit stout, and we didn't back down on the clutch quite a bit, but we'll get a handle on our next run.
As it sees a little more action, could the track get better with more rubber on it?
If it doesn't get too hot, if the sun doesn't beat on it, I think it can. By the final run, I think it'll definitely be better. Semifinals, probably about the same, I think.
Tune for it.
Okay, Mike Dunn, not particularly happy, but I'm sure Darrell Gwynn and the guys will get the clutch and the horsepower sorted out for the next round. There's a couple of real veterans come to the line here, Steve Evans. That's Ed McCullough. Remember, you said he was an alternate in this field after Corey's crash, but still, he has definitely got the bit in his teeth, and facing Joe Amato, he's going to have to use everything he's got with that car.
You bet, and you're on board with the 5-time Winston champ, Joe Amato, also the #1 qualifier here. Picked up a $10,000 cash bonus. Joe Amato, businessman, racer, Old Forge, Pennsylvania. Now let's point out that Ed McCullough, a 6-time U.S. Nationals winner now at Hemet, California, does not get paid for this round. He came in as the alternate. The round money goes to the injured Corey McClanathan where it belongs. If the 8th can get through this round, then he'll get back on the pay schedule.
So the 8th out of the Larry Minor racing team, Hemet, California, one of the very best in the business. There you're seeing Joe Amato, who has won this event a couple of times as well. And Amato up in smoke instantly, just like Jim had.
Absolutely. Ed the Ace McCullough, a little haze off the tires to a 510 at only 265 miles per hour. Contemporary drag racing, that is really very slow. Let's go back down to the starting line again. Bob Fry is with the winning crew chief, Lee Beard.
Lee, 510. Nobody's running down in the force here. Guys just missing their guests on the track?
Oh, the track is hot today, and the traction's just not there. You know, ours come loose down course, too, there, so it's going to be a real test on the crew chiefs today.
Nice win after getting in out of that DNQ list.
Well, I'll tell you what, you get on a promoter's option, you got to go for it.
Great run. They're smiling even with the 510.
So it's going to take more than a 510. I'm sure Lee will agree to win this one as we get ready for another pair. That is Tommy Johnson Jr. we're watching out of Ottumwa, Iowa. On board his top fuel dragster, he will go against Don the Snake Prudhomme. Snake has lane choice. He's also the defending champion here, so it's going to be an interesting race.
Well, you can bet that John Medlin, crew chief for Don Prudhomme, hopes he has got just the right clutch setting. No one has given more over the course of almost 30 years to the sport of NHRA championship drag racing than Don Prudhomme. He's as competitive as ever. And here's a guy just about half his age, Tommy Johnson Jr., and what a tremendous future this young man has. Especially if he can keep the likes of Ronnie Swearingen working on his car. Swearingen, the crew chief, at least for the weekend here. He was in Gainesville as well. All right, crewman walking away from Don Prudhomme's car. We are ready. The final race in round 1 of Top Fuel here at the Winston Invitational. What a ride you were on, and you won the race. Along with Tommy Johnson Jr., something happened to Don Prudhomme's car at about 1,000 feet. He dropped back after a pair of perfect reaction times. Absolutely no advantage off the start. In fact, speaking of the start, let's go down to Bob Fry.
Well, one car got a hold of the track in this round, 497. Ronnie, what's your secret?
Just try and make it go fast with the engine and slow with the clutch. It looked like we were a little close. It was a little edgy. It puffed a little bit. I think we'll be okay, though.
Kid's doing well. How soon before he wins one of these?
Maybe today.
Hey, it's funny car time here at the Winston Invitational. I'm Steve Evans along with Brock Yates and Bob Fry, and that is Al Hoffman, one of the toughest competitors in the nitro fuel coupe wars today, and he does some of the prettiest burnouts as well, getting the tires hot and building himself a racetrack. And he will be up against a fellow out of the Chicago area that is Gary Bolger. Now, Gary qualified the Dale Creasy and family car in the number 9 spot. So what's he doing here in an 8-car field? Well, because yesterday, this Whit Whit Bazemore out of Atlanta, GA, had a bit of a problem in qualifying. A problem, to say the least. Watch the car in the far lane. That was Bazemore. As bad as it looked, Whit Bazemore was okay. He'd seen this movie before and doesn't want to see any repeats. And now it's time for Al Hoffman to face off with Gary Bolger, who comes in to replace Bazemore, right?
and is a definite underdog, Steve. Hoffman, #1 qualifier, a veteran of these wars, has run on virtually every kind of surface except a gravel road. He really understands, he and Tommy Anderson, how to set race cars up for difficult surfaces, and that's got to give him a major advantage here.
Plus, he loves racing here. We've seen him years ago, his first big money win. Bolger's out of it. Smokes and tires right off the starting line. Look at Al Hoffman drive that car through the far end tire smoke. Hoffman, even though he only runs 276 miles an hour, equals his qualifying lapse time of a 5:26. Not bad. Let's go back to the starting line. Bob Fry and Tom Anderson.
5:26 makes you the fastest bracket car here at Rockingham.
Yeah, that was okay. It smoked the tires pretty good down there. We were actually trying to run 21 or 22, but obviously the track wasn't quite good enough to hold it down there, but we'll be okay.
Fuel car seemed to struggle, and yet you guys come up here and ran same as you did in qualifying.
Now, maybe we're lucky.
Maybe you're good.
Maybe we're somewhere in the middle. Okay, let's have another look at it, Brock Yates.
Well, Steve, as you can see, that lane choice becomes really critical here if this racetrack doesn't improve, and that right lane is the one to be in. Everybody is having troubles with the left one. As you can see, Creasy and Gary Bolger once again lose it, like a lot of other guys, as Al Hoffman rolls on to the next round.
And now it's time for our next race. It will be Chuck Etchels against Gordy Bonin. Etchels has completed the burnout, but there's no movement back to the starting line. Etchels cannot get this car into the reverse gear. The crew runs down there. Now, the usual procedure would be to slow the idle down on the engine, maybe rock the car back and forth, hoping to get it to drop into that reverse cog. Now, there is the man he will race if he can get it backed up. Gordy Bonin and Roland Leong's Hawaiian Vacation car. We'll tell you more about them a little bit later. Now, let's see if they try to hand... I think this thing is maybe completely dead in the water. Yep. Tim Richards, crew chief for Chuck Etchels, says, that's it, guys. It's not safe to stand in front of this car. It's not safe to try to push it backwards. Shut it off. We'll race another day. For Gordy Bonin, what a huge break. They have had troubles getting this car down the racetrack. They had one decent qualifying effort. And as we watch Chuck Etchels bail out of his car, we see Roland Leong tell Gordy Bonin, I believe that was a signal to shut it off early, is what that looked like, Brock.
Yeah. So Gordy Bonin will have a bye run here. He qualified 6th at a 5:37. Not any major news there in terms of, but he's got that bad lane, Steve, and he's holding on to the racetrack.
A brilliant drive, but he didn't exactly shut it off very early at 5:42. The speed going up in tire smoke at 268 miles an hour. Let's see how Colonel Roland Leong felt about it.
5:42, a little tire smoke. I mean, it's a win, but it wasn't pretty.
No, we expected something a little better, but after the trouble we had yesterday, and like I say, this is only our 3rd race of the season, we're still learning. We'll get it together better.
Starting to get the combination to fall into place?
Hopefully, yes.
A win here would be the next best thing to a Hawaiian Vacation.
Oh, he's into the next round, as is this young man, Scott Coletta, in his car back in the pit area as they get ready for a test firing of his big engine. We'll see him and a whole bunch more at the Winston Invitational right after this.
You're watching.
First up, more funny car action. That is Wyatt Radke in the Johnny West car, and he will be up against the 2-time Winston Funny Car champion, the #2 qualifier here at Rockingham this weekend. That is John Forrest, and there's the crew chief, Austin Coyle.
As we get a peek inside the cockpit of that Oldsmobile Funny Car, remember now, like Al Hoffman, John Forrest was a match racer for years, and he is ready to handle a racetrack like Rockingham.
In fact, he won this event back in 1990. Wyatt Radke and Johnny West are just the opposite of the Forrest team. They have no one but themselves and whatever volunteer talent they can pick up, and all they have in their trailer is an Echo. There is not a spare motor, not a spare part. Whatever they got under the body is what they come to race with.
As Coyle guides Forrest into the staging position. Remember now, Forrest qualified #2. Radke got into this 8-car field in the 7th spot at a 5:44. He's going to have to step up if he has any chance of beating Forrest here, Steve.
We're about to find out. You're John Forrest. You're in trouble. Look out the left front window. Wyatt Radke has beaten you. Radke a 5:33 to John Forrest's 5:48. Radke's speed only 240, but I'll bet Johnny West, the car owner, car builder back at the starting line, is mighty happy.
Great time, Johnny, 5:33.
Well, we were kind of hoping for that yesterday, but we broke a motor about half track, and it just caught it with our pants down, you know. So now we're just press on from there.
You got the hang of this. What's the drill here?
Beat Forrest, say out of Bob.
You got it.
Couple of hot Californians here. Cruz Pedregon in the McDonald's car against young Del Worsham out of a drag racing family in Orange, California, and he is a comer.
You bet. His father, Chuck, is one of the best crew chiefs in the fuel business. Up against, of course, Cruz Pedregon, who won the Winston Championship last year in his rookie season in a funny car. Maybe has not had that dominance the early part of this year, possibly missing the input of former crew chief Larry Meyer. But new crew chief Mike Green is doing a good job, and let's remember they made their move late in the season last year. Here in this race, it is Pedregon absolutely wire to wire, though. Worsham was never in this one. A 5:31 at a good speed for today for a funny car at 278 miles an hour. Worsham stumbling on through at 6.5 seconds. Right now, let's go down to Bob.
Mike, 5:31 with all the smoke and everything we saw in this round, that's not a bad pass.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. We were hoping to go a little quicker because we got to race Al Hoffman, and he's been tough all weekend, but we'll tune her up a little bit and see if we can go a little quicker next round.
This Steve Evans is round 2 of the Pro Stockers. Remember, they started with a 16-car field, unlike the fuel cars that were only 8 selected for competition.
Here we got a pair of Pontiac runners, Tricky Ricky Smith in the all-white unsponsored car. He'd like to do something about that. He's up against Jim Yates over in the far lane. Yates, a businessman involved in the automotive aftermarket. And Yates, interestingly enough, recently attended a reaction time kind of tune-up session at Frank Hawley's drag racing school in Gainesville, Florida. I was down there, and a lot of guys learned a lot, not only what their own reaction time was, but for the first time they could separate driver reaction from car reaction. And I think some of the crew chiefs have been able to put that information to good work. Jim Yates out of Virginia up against Ricky Smith. And of course, anytime you talk about Ricky Smith, you got to talk hole shots. He has been so good over the years. I would love to know his average of getting out first on his opponent. I'll bet it's somewhere around 700.
Well, let's see how he does against Yates after his tune-up session, as you say, down at Frank Hawley's, where an awful lot of guys have gone in recent years to get their act together, and Hawley does a really good job of just an overall training session down there.
That's right. All right, there's Yates in the far lane, Ricky Smith in their lane. A perfect light for Jim Yates. 4:00. That's perfect. And he outruns Ricky Smith as well. They both run 7:20, but Yates with the hole shot got there first by about a car length at 192 miles an hour.
But I think Jim's going to have to find a little bit more in the ET department if he's going to win this thing, because guys like Bob Glidden are running a considerably quicker.
That's right, and Glidden won't have to worry about winning this race. This one he's got in hand because, as we saw, Larry Morgan, who crashed in the first round up against Vince Corey, could not return. No surprise there. And here is Glidden on his bye run, and he's going to hammer it all the way through. No saving parts for Rapid Robert. A 7:16, just like you said, Brock, you're going to have to get down in those teens. 193 miles an hour. You know, Jim Yates talking about the reaction time deal. What they learned at that Hawley Clinic was how to get the car to react better, not so much the driver. That was really the point of that whole deal.
All right, here are a couple of the young Lions in Pro Stock getting ready to go against each other. That is Kurt Johnson, who got by Rusty Glidden in round 1. Scott Jeffreyon in the Dodge has the lane choice of 7:10 versus a 7:14. So these guys are very quick runners.
And Scott Jeffreyon over in the far lane, he's a guy that did go to a drag racing school to work on his driver reaction time, and that school was right here where veteran driver Roy Hill instructs, one of the top schools, the top school when it comes to the pro stock style automobiles. Let's see if that has paid off for Scott Jeffreyon. Jeffreyon in the far lane, that's the Oldsmobile of Kurt Johnson, son of Warren, in the near lane. Beautiful lead by Jeffreyon. He's got a shot. Oh, but from behind comes Kurt Johnson, the race of the day. Johnson a 7:14, Jeffreyon a 7:18, but with a hole shot, it was darn near a dead heat as both run over 193 miles an hour.
And it was Jeffreyon with a 4:33 reaction time. Very good, that got him away first. But it seems to be that raw horsepower of the Oldsmobiles that serves not only Kurt but his father Warren so well that paid off at the end. There you see that looks like a heads-up drag race at half track, but suddenly a burst of speed on the part of the Oldsmobile in the near lane takes it home for Kurt Johnson. All right, we've got more Johnsons coming up here. That is Jerry Ackman in the Pontiac, but he is going to face the current Winston champion and father of Kurt, Warren Johnson, in the far lane. And I'll tell you what, Steve, this man is like a machine.
There's his wife, Arlene, with the video camera shutting the driver's side door for Warren Johnson. Warren beat Paul Rabeshi in round number 1 with a 7:10 elapsed time. You think that was good? He ran an 09 in qualifying. Jerry Ekman, not quite in that league, qualified number 9 at a good 7:15. He beat Mark Osborne in round 2. There's no question that Warren Johnson has the other pro stock teams on the rope. In fact, he may run them completely out of the ring before this season is over.
If anybody can get into the 6s, it could be Johnson, and it could happen this season. He is getting awfully close to that big, powerful Oldsmobile and some excellent driving as well.
The Pontiac of Ekman, the bright yellow car, is in the hunt until about 1,000 feet. At the quarter-mile mark, it is all Warren Johnson, slow for him, at 7:12, 195 miles an hour. Good news for Warren, though, he left with Jerry Ekman. If he has a problem, that's it. Sometimes getting off the mark, they left wheel to wheel.
All right, let's take a look at the final 4 here in Pro Stock. Johnson versus Johnson. Father versus son. Warren, the dad, will have the lane choice. That's going to be an interesting one. Jim Yates, he had the perfect light against the winningest driver in drag racing history, Bob Glidden, in the other half of the final 4.
In a little bit, the Johnson family is going to have some fun. You will have lane choice with the 7:12 over Kurt's 14.
Well, Kurt made an excellent run in that lane, so I think it's going to be a real battle.
And I think the two of you are just going to try to rip each other's throats out.
You got that exactly right.
Daddy's got something to prove.
And here's some good news. Johnny West and Wyatt Radke didn't hurt their motor too bad. They'll face Gordy Bonnet in the semis coming up in Funny Car. We'll be right back.
We are roaring at the Rock, the NHRA Winston Invitational presented by Castrol GTX. That is the Funny Car chassis. Gordy Bonham will drive in the next round up against Wyatt Radke. Got a lot of work to do there. They'll be ready. Bank on it. Right now it's time for the semis in Top Fuel, the final 4. Eddie Ace McCullough in as an alternate, survived round 1, and now Brock Yates up against Scott Coletta. He will not be a pushover.
No, he won't, because as we said earlier, the Coletta flying service is flying. He and Dick LaHaye and Dad Connie have got this race car really working, and I think the young man has really gained an awful lot of confidence as well. He seems to just be so much more self-assured than he was.
Yeah, and that man Lee Beard, he instills confidence in his drivers as well. He and Ed McCullough are not only good friends at the racetrack, but off as well. All right, here go McCullough and Coletta. McCullough is the NHRA Winston points leader for the overall series, but this is not a points race. Eddie Hill, number 2 in points, didn't qualify. That doesn't hurt him here. So McCullough just having fun and trying to make a little money for Larry Minor Motorsports out of Hemet, California. McCullough overpowers the racetrack. A little oil out of Scott Coletta's engine, but Dick LaHaye said, hey, we can fix anything, all right? 5:11 at only 259 miles an hour, so that engine was given up on the far end. McCullough struggled through at just 9:01. Here's Bob Fry at the start.
That could have been a nasty 5:11.
Well, it's very possible. We'll just have to wait and see what happened. I couldn't see from the tire smoke from McCullough's car. But I can see he shut it off early, so we'll just have to wait and see how it comes out.
Tommy Johnson Jr. and Mike Dunn complete their burnouts. It will be Johnson with a lane choice at a 4:97.
He was the only car in round 1 to record a 4-second elapsed time. So here they come to the line, 5,000 horsepower apiece. Sometimes they wish they only had maybe 4,000, depending on the conditions. But that's what clutch management is all about. Mike Dunn snaps down his visor. 30-year-old Mike Dunn, Tommy Johnson Jr.'s mid-20s. Good reaction times, good race. Great race. Mike Dunn has Darrell hooping it up. Mike Dunn will take that car into the final round against Scott Coletta at 5:14, 280 miles an hour.
So it will be Mike Dunn versus Scott Coletta, with Scott having a lane choice and also a hurt motor. So that's going to make that interesting.
That is Bruce Pedregon, Larry Minor Motorsports, the McDonald's Oldsmobile Funny Car, and that is the number 1 qualifier here who duplicated that 5:26 in round 1, Al Hoffman, who had lane choice Brock Yates and has taken the far side.
Yeah, he, I'm sure, has taken that other lane because so many guys have had problems in the lane, in near lane where Cruz is. as we watch these guys get ready to go. They've raced each other a whole bunch of times. There are no tricks in their bag that have ever will work against the other one, and a couple of real veterans.
How good is this race? Tommy Anderson lifts the body. That's just SOP on that car. This race is so good, we can't see it, but John Force's big rig, you saw it leaving, it stopped out on the road, and all those guys are up on top of it trying to see this race between Pedregon and Hoffman.
Remember now, Hoffman has lane choice, was the #1 qualifier, and has run very consistently here, more so than anybody else in the funny car on a very difficult surface.
And that's true actually over the last few years, not just this race. Whoa! Oh, I thought Pedregon was going to drive around him, but the power couldn't be applied to the racetrack. You saw the tire smoke in the last 500 feet. It is Hoffman. Guess what? Another 5:26 elapsed time, but this time with a heck of a lot more speed, 282 miles an hour. Let's take another look, Brock.
Tommy Anderson, Hoffman's crew chief, worked very hard at consistency, and I'll tell you what, it pays off as Cruz gets out first. Good reaction time of 4:32 on the line, but it doesn't work. He hazes the tires here a little bit at mid-track, and that is enough to permit Al Hoffman to roll into the finals, but not by much, as you can see. Let's go down to Al.
Cruz Pedregon came around the corner screaming, "Who won?" And I had to point at this white car. Your third 5:26 in a row, Al.
Well, we figured 3 of them would win this deal out here, so we didn't think it'd be that consistent. Good deal, because it was moving around, and I'm happy.
Is it getting any better as far as handling is concerned?
Yeah, I'm not having to play with the brake as hard as I was before, so it gives me a chance to drive the car a little bit more. But BDS, New Orlando, Dodge Daytona is doing a great job. I'd like to thank a few sponsors. Mr. Gasket, Pennzoil, they've really been doing a great job for us.
Okay, Al.
Well, Steve, let's see who will face Al Hoffman in the funny car finals. Will it be this man, that is Wyatt Radke, or Gordy Bonnet? Remember the last time we saw Radke, there was some question of whether or not he'd even appear, Steve Evans.
And I have some questions about that car. That was not a good burnout. It was not the kind of tire-smoking, aggressive effort you expect from a car in the semifinals. Roland Leong, no one has more experience doing just that, directing his driver in the starting line than Roland does. One of the most successful car owners ever with this whole new team. There is Leonard Hughes, the crew chief, walking away from the car. Gordy Bonnet, resurrected as the driver out of Canada, many-time national event winner. As Gordy said earlier, only the third race. And over there with the Johnny West car, that's Johnny himself leaning over. He says, yeah, it's okay. Well, we'll see.
Yeah, they made some major repairs on that engine. As you said, they had to, they only had one in the car, and let's see if it works, if it was in fact made ready for the race.
Right, Bonnet near lane, Radke far side. Radke does not even leave the starting line. Gordy Bonnet waltzes into the final round, and he picks up their pace at a 5:33, 237 miles an hour. Wyatt Radke did not leave the starting line, probably didn't have any oil pressure. Hope maybe Bonnet would red light or cross the center line, something like that. Bob?
Roland, you guys starting to get pretty consistent, the 33 and the 31, but of course Anderson and Hoffman put those 26s up. You're going to have to step on it.
Well, we're still working on it, and I'm pretty sure Leonard Hughes will figure it out. We went from a 42, picked up a 10th, now we only need half a 10th, so we'll see.
Did you guys know that Radke was broke?
No, we didn't. We just run our own race. We don't care who's next to us.
Hey, we're working our way up to the Big Island, huh?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, so it's going to be Gordy Bonnet, who ran a single there against Al Hoffman, and enormous consistency on the part of Al Hoffman, and he will, of course, have the lane choice.
I haven't been able to say this since 1981. Gordy Bonnet, you're going to the final round.
Thank you very much, Steve. The Lord must live in Hawaii, I'm telling you. We've had some trouble this year so far, but we're getting close, and we'd love to be in the final of the Winston Invitational.
You know, a pretty nice 5:33, no speed. Did you click it early?
I clicked it early. It was one of those, we got not a lot of parts left. If he's not there, click it. So I clicked it. It should have run probably about 220.
Hoffman will be tough.
He's bad. He's the guy right now. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And back in the pit area, as we suspected, that's a new motor being snapped into Todd Kalitta's car. He heard it, and he's going to face Mike Dunn in the final. That'll be a great one. Coming up.
The ultimate door slammers. NHRA's Pro Stockers are on the pad here at the Winston Invitational presented by Castro GTX. This is the Final Four, pitting that Pontiac of Jim Yates up against Bob Glidden and his Ford Pro. Make your bets here in the Final Four of Pro Stock. Do you like Glidden or Yates, Brock Yates?
Well, I got to stick with my old shirt tail relative, but I'll tell you what, it's awful hard to bet against Glidden. That car is running very well. Remember, he had some problems last season, probably his worst season in a long time, but the Glidden team never gives up, and they've come back pretty well. Jim Yates, of course, came onto the scene with a bang last year and ran very well.
Well, I'll tell you, he came out of the gate with a bang in the second round with that perfect reaction time. 4-0-0-0. They just don't get any better than that. A wink better than that, and you're out of here with a red light.
That's right.
So Glidden has the performance, Yates has the reaction time, and that could make for a very good car race. It is Yates out first. It is Glidden catching up. It is Glidden by about a headlight ring at a 717 to a 722. Glidden out muscled him, that's for sure. 193.75 to 191 miles an hour.
Well, what can you say about him? The #1 driver, the #1 car owner, the #1 crew chief in pro stock racing at the current level. Unbelievable performance on the part of this Oldsmobile.
And all of that engine technology comes out of his shop in Atlanta, outside Atlanta, Duluth, Georgia. And the same engine essentially is under the hood. Now, Kurt Johnson, he's building that motor, he's tuning it, but the technology, the things they learned on Warren's dyno, I'm sure are transferred into both of these automobiles. Warren Johnson, the Oldsmobile out of General Motors Performance Parts, the Torco oil-sponsored car of Kurt Johnson. And I agree with Bob Glidden, there'll be no quarter asked and none given in this car race. Father wants to beat son and vice versa. Let's see who stages first. Who's going to break here? Kurt did. Warren wanted to stage last, and he got it. Good reaction times, good race. Warren Johnson by 3/4 of a car length. Just more power or a better clutch, possibly. 711, 195 to a 715, 193. A race that certainly didn't disappoint anyone.
The finals will be two arch rivals, Bob Glidden versus Warren Johnson. How many times have they run each other in qualifying and in competition? Who can tell? Johnson will have lane choice.
Now here with their maintenance completed and on the pad, two of the greatest pro stock racers in drag racing history. Bob Glidden, the red Ford Pro. The tire smoke behind his car. Next to burn out is Warren Johnson. He is the reigning champion in the white Oldsmobile. Now, earlier, I had a chance to talk to both of these drivers, I mean, just a few minutes before they got into the automobiles for their reactions. Well, here we go. The Hatfields and the McCoys, I mean, the Gliddens and the Johnsons.
The way, Steve, the way Johnson's running, we really don't have much of a shot at beating him unless he screws up and beats himself. We're going to try some things with the car, different transmission ratio, probably a different clutch, and go out and keep our fingers crossed and hope I come out of comatose on the starting line and let the clutch out on time.
Warren Glidden is over there throwing everything but the kitchen sink in that Ford to try to beat you. He's pulling out all the stops.
Well, I'm sure Bob's going to try everything he possibly can. I mean, he's got no choice, so we've got a slight performance advantage. We've got lane choice, and you know, neither he nor I know what's going to happen to that track, so he can assume if there's going to be a bad lane, he's going to have it, so he's going to try everything he can, and you can't blame him for that. I'd do the same thing.
All right, that is the white Oldsmobile of Warren Johnson getting ready to go. And as he said, he's got the lane choice, he's got the low ET, he's got the advantage here. But I'll tell you what, Bob Glidden's got the tradition, the knowledge, and an unbelievable reservoir of skill to back him up.
Absolutely. There is Rusty Glidden, who was defeated in round 1 today, out there helping his dad as he has since he was a little bitty kid, actually, he and his brother Billy. Warren Johnson kind of taking his time rolling up there. He's in the driver's seat in the GM Performance Parts Olds, as you just said, Brock. He doesn't need to do anything hasty. He doesn't need to play any games. He's got tremendous performance advantage. He called it a little. He's run 709, 710, 711. No one's really been in that league. Well, they've pre-staged. That's always the fun part of a pro stock race. Who goes in first? I have a feeling probably Warren will say, I can only lose this game if I play it. So Warren moves in. I'm sure you'll see the front wheels of the Pro. They inch in. Warren's a day and a half late. Johnson a little too complacent. but he has enough. Warren Johnson, a 7:12 to a 7:24. He survives a hole shot. Let's go to Bob with Greg Anderson.
Well, that was a magnificent performance, a 7.12, another 125, and again, the Olds goes wire to wire.
I don't know what to tell you, Bob. It's so exciting. This race is just so much more fun than all the NHRA points races. I got to thank Winston, the folks at Quick Stop for the $10,000 cash. Just all kinds of excitement all weekend long. And we ended up getting the whole schmear. The GM Goodwrench Oldsmobile is just flying.
Just a magnificent job. Let's take a look at that again.
Well, Bob, I'll tell you what, it had to fly because Warren was definitely late. As you can see, Bob Glidden had a good launch, good reaction time, and if that Ford had had a few more horsepower, he'd have been in the winner's circle because Warren Johnson had to pull out the last ounce of horsepower for that Oldsmobile to get around him, which he does, but it was a closer race than the ETs would indicate. So Warren Johnson into the winner's circle, and Steve's with him.
Well, Warren, you let Bob do just about anything he wanted on the starting line. You were so confident. You didn't play any games.
I don't think it was a case of overconfidence on either one of our parts. We've known each other for so long and raced each other so many times that we respect each other for what we can do. I went and did my game plan. Bob went and did his. Fortunately, the GM Performance Parts Oldsmobile won.
And you polished off the probe with a 7:12.
Well, the 12 isn't all that great considering the 09. We had already run an 09 here, but the fortunate thing is we won.
Congratulations, Warren Johnson. Brock?
That's Bob Glidden yelling hello to his wife Etta back in Whiteland, Indiana, who did not come down for this event. As we get ready to go for the finals in funny car. And Steve Evans, this is going to be kind of interesting because Gordy Bonin really has struggled to get here. And Al Hoffman, on the other hand, has been unbelievably consistent. He could run a railroad based on the time schedules he's been working on.
Yeah, heck of a lot better than any railroad I've been on in my lifetime. Al Hoffman is in a similar situation as Warren Johnson was. Well, Al, this isn't the quickest race of your career, but it may be the most flawless so far.
Well, it's not the quickest race of our career, but it is here. I mean, that's a track record on both ends, mile an hour and speed, so we're pretty happy with the performance of the car here.
Leave it alone?
Yeah, we're just going to try to repeat and win the race.
You're driving for a very demanding car owner and crew chief. Do they put a little, maybe, additional pressure on you don't need?
You might say that. We work best under pressure, though. We all do. It's, I mean, you can see this mess here. Those two are the best. Roland's assembled an excellent team, and it's very demanding, but that's why I'm here.
And that man, Roland Leong, has been around funny cars as long as there were funny cars, as has this man, Leonard Hughes, who's a brilliant crew chief, of course, was the Candyton Hughes team for so many years. But they faced this man, Al Hoffman, in the cockpit, and this man as well. You got a peek at that dropping the body down, Tommy Anderson, who's risen to the absolute top ranks of funny car crew chiefs.
After being a great driver, Hoffman's reaction times have not been very good, but I think that's the setup of the car. To not smoke the tire, Anderson has it lazy off that mark. Bonin loses traction. Hoffman fighting for control. Al Hoffman, oh, he saved the best for last. A 5:18 at 288 miles an hour. Bob?
I'm here. So is Tom. There goes Ellen winging her way by. What'd you guys do wrong? You didn't run a 26.
No, I told you I was going to step it up a little bit. I thought the track would take it, so looks good. 288. That's not bad for here.
Magnificent performance. You guys got to love this racetrack.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank Winston. Without them, we wouldn't be here, and not only at this race, but all season. Those guys are great, and we love their money.
Didn't look like you heard a lot of stuff here today.
That's fine.
A magnificent performance here for Tommy Anderson and Ellen Hoffman. And let's take a look at that again, the replay for that great win for Al Hoffman.
Well, Bob, Gordy Bonham was in it for the first few feet until the tires just let loose on that car in the near lane. As you can see, Al Hoffman, the consistency, unbelievable.
Al, what happened? You didn't run another 26. It ran a 5:18, saving the best for last.
Yeah, we were counting on doing that. We ran the left lane the last lap there, and it looked like it had plenty of room, and it was safe, so we wanted to come out here and move the track record a little bit, and it was a real good race.
And now it's time for the last race of the day. Brock Yates, Scott Coletta, and Mike Dunn.
In a fascinating day, really, of upsets that's seen an awful lot of big names fall by the wayside. So as Mike Dunn and Scott Coletta get ready to go here in the Top Fuel final, earlier, Steve had a chance to talk with both of them.
Well, Scott, you're headed for the final, but it hasn't been easy on engines. A third one going in.
Actually, it's the fourth. But yeah, you're right. But you know, they don't come easy. We've had a pretty good year so far. We haven't hurt a lot of parts, but you know, the aluminum god decided that it wanted to get even with us. So
all you're asked to do is leave on time, right?
that's all I got to do. Hopefully, I can do that, and then he'll do his job, and we'll be in the winner's circle.
Mike, here in a few minutes, you could add your name to the very short list of drivers who have won big events in funny cars and top fuel cars.
Well, that'd be nice, and that'd be a good goal for us. But, you know, it's going to be tough. Scott, he's run awfully good with Dick LaHaye over there, and he's been driving real well. You know, we've been dropping cylinders the first 2 runs. We wanted to run about a 5.0 that last run, but it dropped the cylinder and fell off a run of 14. If we can get the other 8 cylinders and go out there and run about a 5 flat, that's what we're going to shoot for. But that's always a big if.
Well, Steve, keeping these overpowered race cars under control is the job of a guy like Darrell Gwynn, who sets the clutch and gets these race cars to really work to handle this very treacherous racetrack.
Well, and that's very true. From a Scott Coletta, Mike Dunn standpoint, these cars appear to be very easy to drive. You don't shift any gears. You just don't even let a clutch out. You just step on a pedal. But boy, I'll tell you, steering these things and grabbing the handbrake as an acceleration tool to slow the wheel speed and all the other things you can do in these cars on an off racetrack is really something. Whoa, I thought Mike Dunn might make a big top-end charge, but it just wasn't there. Scott Coletta has won his first major Top Fuel championship, the Winston Invitational, at 5:03, 280 miles an hour. To Mike Dunn's close, but not quite there, 5:07, 278.
Well, let's take another look at this, and the drivers both leave essentially at the same time, but something happens to Mike Dunn's engine at about there. See that big cluster of flame coming out of the left side of the engine, and apparently that spelled the difference, because the horsepower apparently fell off just enough to give Scott Coletta the victory by almost a car length.
Okay, thank you, Brock Yates. Scott Coletta, congratulations. Let me shake that hand. What a thrill.
Thank you, Steve. It was great. The guys really worked hard for this one. We put 4 motors in it all weekend, and we hurt that one too. So, but it's a great feeling. Help Winston out and everybody else.
And a pretty good race, a 5:03 to a 5:07, but you were razor sharp off the line.
Yeah, I would have liked to have been a little better. Everybody tries to be as good as possible, but you know, I got the win light, so I guess that's all that matters.
Our congratulations to Scott, as well as Al Hoffman, who won in funny car, and Warren Johnson in pro stock, as well as a great cast of competitors here at Rockingham today. For Steve Evans and Bob Fry, I'm Brock Yates. Thanks for joining us.
The executive producer for American Sports Cavalcade is George E. Orgera. The supervising producer is Tom Gee. Produced and directed by Mark Kuchin. The American Sports Cavalcade is a presentation of Diamond P Sports.
Andretti said, did I win? Did I win? Yeah, you won everything but the